I'm going to tell you today that it's not technology, it's not location, it's not one person on the team that makes the real estate team. It is the team culture. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. I am so glad that you've taken the time to join me today. We've got a great topic here at the Real Estate Roundtable with Brian Eisenhower. We're going to be talking to you today about how to build a real estate team that lasts. And we're a real estate team here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have offices in San Francisco and Sacramento County. And today I'm going to be telling you how we went about building our real estate team. And frankly, we didn't build our real estate team by success after success after success. Well, we failed a little bit. Actually, truthfully, we failed a lot. In some sense, we didn't fail backwards, but we failed forward. And so I want to share with you today of what we're doing to build a real estate team and what I think it takes to build a real estate team that lasts. One of the things that we've discovered about a real estate team is it's more about who you work with and less about what you do. And so today we'll be talking about what it takes to build that real estate team that lasts. And you might say, well, Rick, why are we talking about it, during this great pandemic? Why are we talking about real estate teams and how we build? Because it's going to take a great real estate team that's going to weather this storm. If you don't have your roots planted deeply in this market, you're not going to weather it. Hey, Travis, welcome to the call. Thank you so much. I'm glad you like the topic. So here's my question for you before we get going, and feel free to chime in. My first question for you is, what do you think it takes to build a real estate team that lasts? Put that in the comment section right there, or just comment below what you think it takes. I'll list a couple of them as you do. Some people have said it takes great branding. Well, branding is certainly important on a real estate team, communicating a clear and concise brand, but certainly it's far more than that. Others have said, Rick, it is technology. Think about the world we live in today, and with guaranteed offers, if I can't sell your home, I'll buy it. You think about Zillow and the iBuyer role. What's interesting about the iBuyer role today is that the iBuyer role, well, there is no iBuyer role. That has all dried up in this market. Matter of fact, for us in the real estate business, if you're a real estate agent that's on this call and you're listening in, you know it was never about iBuyers. It's always about our buyer. And think about that for a moment. The iBuyer, it was all about it was always about the technology. It was always about the independence of the buyer. For the real estate community, it was really about our buyer. And we took that very, very seriously. You've probably stayed up late at night thinking about your buyer. You've worked diligently to find that right home for your buyer. It never was about it being iBuyer. It was always about being my buyer, our buyer. Hey, George, welcome to the call. Hey, so the question is, what do you think it takes to build a great real estate team? Go ahead and put it in the comments section there. Some people have said it's location. I can remember reading a story about Ray Kroc, and who took bought the McDonald's brand. He was actually a milkshake salesperson. He bought the McDonald's brand from the McDonald's brothers in Southern California and grew it to one of the largest franchises in history. And he once asked the question. He says, "What do you think? What business do you think I'm in?" And everybody responded, said, "Well, you're in the hamburger business, you're in the nugget business, you're in the commodity business, you're in the French fry business." And he says, "No, I'm in the real estate business." His idea was that, and his premise was, the location of my restaurant is of utmost importance, and I'm really in the real estate business. So some might say what it takes to build a great real estate team is it takes having the right location. Someone else might say that it takes a certain team member. If you think about some of the teams beyond real estate, you might think of, and I'm from San Francisco, from the San Francisco Bay Area, So I'm only going to reference San Francisco teams, but somebody might say, hey, we got a Steph Curry on our team. Get that guy the ball and he's going to score. Get that guy the ball and he's going to take that 3-point shot and he's going to make it. You might on a real estate team say, man, I've got a Steph Curry. The guy is awesome. The gal is awesome. I assign her an opportunity and he or she just takes it and succeeds and takes great care of our clients. Some of you might say, well, I've got a Jimmy Garoppolo on my team. Man, I get that guy the ball and I can pass it. We can score. We can move the ball down the field. Sorry, they're all San Francisco Bay Area teams. Hey, George. George says that what he thinks it takes to build a team is synergistic commitment is a requisite to building a real estate team. Good. Let's see who else is on the chat box here. Manuel says it's communication. Pardon me. Erica said it's communication and clear expectation. Very, very good. Powerful. I'm going to tell you today that it's not technology. It's not location. It's not one person on the team that makes the real estate team. It is the team culture, the culture of your real estate team. Now, I'm going to tell you what we're doing as a real estate team here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Folks, we've not arrived. Sometimes it looks to me like we take 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. You know, I talk to Brian Eisenhower on a regular basis, and he's always kind of walking me through what the next steps are. And sometimes like, man, you went backwards this week. Sometimes we went forward this week. His help is always greatly appreciated. And he is just a mastermind when it comes to this business. Have you thought about this? I don't know of anyone that's got a better pulse on what's happening in our industry, especially right now during this pandemic, than Brian Eisenhower. That guy has a pulse on this market. He is a machine putting out videos about unemployment, the PPP program, the EIDL program, the $10,000. I mean, he has put this out there. He's done a great job. Hey, by the way, if you've appreciated Brian Eisenhower, just put it in the comment section. Let him know. So I'm going to tell you, I think it's real estate culture that makes all the difference. And today I want to parallel the real estate culture to a culture tree, to a tree. And the reason I want to do that is because I think a picture is always worth 1,000 words. You probably will remember very little that I say on this webinar or this call, but hopefully you'll remember the picture that I'm going to give you. It's a picture of a tree. So let's start at the very basics of a tree. The very best trees, the strongest trees, and the ones that weather the greatest storm, those trees have the best soil. And I don't care if it's a redwood tree, I don't care if it's a fruit tree, it's an apple tree, it's an orange tree. I got 19 fruit trees in my backyard. All of them grow when it's in the very best soil. So for me, the soil, that's not part of the tree, but it's certainly it's what makes the tree as healthy and as strong as what it is. So how's your soil? How's the soil of your team members? Well, I'll tell you right now, during this pandemic, having team members with great soil and you as a team leader, making sure you're leading and guiding them in a direction that is going to kind of nurture that soil is imperative for the growth of your organization and for your tree, your team to reach new heights. Some of the soil that I think about right now is think about the soil of the relationships that your team has. How about their relationship at home? Their spouse, or the relationship with their kids. They probably have never seen their spouse nearly as frequently as what they're seeing their spouse now. They're probably hearing their kids in the background all the entire time because of no school and so forth, or shelter in place. Maybe financially things are tough. Like the soil, the home front of your team member impacts the productivity, success, and the overall height and potential of your real estate team. So it's not enough to ignore that. It's not enough to think that doesn't exist. Make sure that you as a team leader, you're leading first by example, but then you care deeply about your team member as a whole and that they have good, healthy soil. Because together, you're not going to be able to grow anything if that soil is damaged. I mean, and we can be real on this call. Man, you've been on you've had an argument with your spouse. You've had a tough conversation with your kids, and then you go to work. Are you the same? Are you as productive? right? So that soil matters. And you put the pressure of this pandemic, especially financially, shelter in place and all the implications of that on the call for so many people. And you put all that into perspective, and it can provide a lot of pressure on the soil of your team members. So make sure that you're leading, you're teaching, you're giving great guidance when it comes to the soil of your team. And you're hiring people that have great soil. Because without that great soil, without that great ingredients, without those good nutrients in that soil, the tree's not growing anywhere. The next step is that you got to have great roots on your team. Now think about it. Everything a tree starts with its roots. Before it ever even breaks ground, it's all about the roots, right? It pulls in the nutrients from good soil it produces. The potential of the tree, the type of tree all comes from its roots. Now think about this. What is the roots of your organization? I would define the roots of your organization. That's your mission. That's like why you get up in the morning. And I don't mean mission statement from a corporate perspective or something you write on the wall and you never look at it. I mean, if you were to open up your organization and say, why do people show up in the morning? Maybe you open at 9 a.m. Why do people arrive at 9 a.m.? Why are they doing open houses on the weekend? Why are they out there working? What is that mission behind why we're working together? Must define that as a real estate team. Hey, I want to give a couple of shout outs here. Some people, Sherry, welcome. Good evening from Remax in Israel. Welcome to the call. So glad to have you. Or George, Orlando. George, I loved hanging out with you last year. That was so cool. We had a great couple of days and dinner together. Yiddish, welcome to the call. I love Brian's books. Yes, Brian is a stud. I love working with Brian. By the way, if you're not getting coached by ICC Learning Center, by ICC, like you got to sign up for that. I know they give free coaching calls and free coaching session. Make sure you're doing that. And then look, we got the man himself, Brian Eisenhower, on the call. So Brian, thank you for joining us. So the roots of your organization, why you exist. Like, why does everybody show up and gather to do organized real estate? Matters. When you tap into having a shared purpose with your team, like we're getting together for a shared purpose, I found two things. When people find a purpose that's bigger than themselves and a first-class operation, they want to be a part of it. Like those are the two ingredients to attract talent. And when you begin to articulate that, it draws people to your organization. So why do you exist? Like, what's the reason that people gather every morning? I'll tell you, for us as a real estate team in the San Francisco Bay Area and Sacramento County, our mission stemmed from a bad experience that I had. I bought my first home. I was in my 20s. I was so naive to the process and to even the terminology was so confusing to me. Escrow, title, deposits, and all this stuff that was happening. And I had a terrible buying experience. We were actually living in a property that we were renting at that time. My wife, Jennifer, contacted our landlord, said, hey, we're thinking about moving. And she said, why do you move? Why not just buy the home you're in? And so my wife, Jennifer, represented us before we even had kids on our first home. And although the decision to buy real estate was amazing, it was going up in value. My oldest daughter, April, was born. We were able to take her home, paint the nursery, do what we wanted to do in the backyard. It was a tiny little house, about 1,400 square feet here in the San Francisco Bay Area. But the process of buying that home was extremely frustrating. It was so frustrating, all the documents I had to provide. It was so frustrating that I would get an email to say, hey, I need these items. I would then go to work, have to leave work, come home, grab those items. At that time, it was going to a mailbox, etc., a FedEx, sending those items in, right? And I realized that the value of owning real estate was so great. Matter of fact, without owning real estate, it can be hazardous to your wealth, right? But yet the process was so frustrating for me that I penned these words that our mission was to provide our clients the kind of experience they're excited to tell a friend about. Our mission is why we get up in the morning, why we gather, what's that shared purpose. It originated from my story, but you probably have a similar story. Matter of fact, I would imagine if I asked you to describe your last move, you'd say, yeah, Rick, I remember my last move. I remember moving from one home to the next. Rick, I remember eating pizza on moving boxes. I remember getting the keys to my new home. I remember painting. I remember the new flooring. I remember those things. You probably remember them too. And so we realized that the move was unforgettable. And so the roots of our organization, the mission of our organization began to be, how do we provide those clients the kind of experience that they're excited to tell a friend about? Because it's unforgettable and because it doesn't happen very often, let's make sure that we do that. And what we realize is that the move has become is paramount importance for every family member, right? If you're kind of a multi-generational family, that occurs quite a bit in the Bay Area, aunts, uncles, grandparents, your parents are living with you, or perhaps you just have kids at home. Like, it impacts everybody. It's not just the buyers and sellers, right? It impacts everybody. And so we believe that the mission of our organization is provide our clients the kind of experience they're excited to tell a friend about. We've got about 40 team members, and they've helped us generate nearly 1,000 five-star reviews. And so that's kind of where our roots are and what we are advocating on our real estate team of why we exist. It's our mission. So once you have the roots clearly identified and you're living up to them, it's not just something you put on the wall, it's not just something you write in a book, it's not just something you write on a notepad. It's like you live up to them. Every team member should be able to say, this is why we exist. This is our shared purpose. This is why I show up in the morning. Now you need to start looking at the trunk of the organization. You can trim a branch, you can trim a limb, but you never trim the trunk of your organization. These are fundamental. And if you think about a trunk of a tree, what does it do? The trunk of a tree is a conduit of what's happening with the roots all the way to the branches and eventually the fruit. And that's the same thing in a real estate organization. Think about the trunk of a tree, and think about the trunk of a tree as that which conduits your message to your goals and to your clients' goals. So for us, we have found that the best representation of the trunk of a tree in a service-oriented business are those that are serving. And that's our team members. And we believe, and if you've been on some of the other calls with me, you know that I have a 3-step process, what we define as an ideal team player. We didn't make that up, by the way. You can check it out in a book by Patrick Lencioni called The Ideal Team Player. And he says, there are 3 things that make a great team player. And I'm going to argue that if you recognize these 3 things in a team player, you should recognize them before you define whether they're a good buyer's agent or listing agent or concierge or marketer or transaction coordinator or operations. Like, what you want to do is you want to define good team members, because if they're an ideal team member, you'll find a place for them, because you're always on search for talent. And so a great team member has 3 pieces. Number 1, they're humble. Because you know this, if they're not humble, they're not coachable. If they're not humble, they're not willing to take advice. And if they're not humble, they want their name on everything. And it becomes more about the me's and I's than the us's and we's, right? And we want to create an organization where it's about us and we, and not the I's and me's. And so think about your team members. Number 1, they got to have humility. They got to be humble. Number 2, they got to be hungry. If nobody's hungry, you can't be the sole motivator of your team. Every morning, you can't give a motivational video or a motivational call or a motivational meeting and get them up and get them working and get them productive. But you got to have team members with an internal drive to advance their career, an internal drive to do more today than they did yesterday, an internal drive to do better tomorrow than what they did today. You would want somebody who has a hunger. I'm actually convinced that of the 3, they're all critically important, but hunger is the most important. And the 3rd component is they've got to be people smart. Those that are people smart, I'm not looking for necessarily IQ smart. I don't need them to map the trajectory to Mars. What I need them to do is be able to sit down with somebody and make a connection. I need to be able to reach across the table, metaphorically today, shake hands. I know that's taboo, but shake hands with somebody, meet them face to face, to be able to make a connection, to be able to articulate our value proposition as a team, and to be able to build credibility. You know this, that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And that's what that's about. So we believe that how are you going to take this great mission that you have as a real estate team, and you're going to channel it to those operational goals that you have? It's by having great team members that are humble, hungry, and smart, and that becomes the trunk of your organization. So I got to move on a little bit. Let me kind of glance over at my comments. Hey, thanks so much for everybody joining us here. Cami says, I've never met anyone that works as smart and hard as Brian Eisenhower. Man, that guy is a machine putting out content. I try to consume as much of it as I can, and I share a lot of it. A lot of it helps a lot of our team members. And we've got some other great coaches too, with ICC Coaching, really some phenomenal real estate coaches. And they do offer a 15-minute free coaching call. So make sure you connect, put your comments in. Hey, I want that free coaching call. Somebody from the organization will follow up with you. There's no pressure. They just help you. And if there's ever a time that you need help and guidance today, now's the time, right? When the world is in turmoil, when there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, you need certainty. Listen, people do not move well with a lack of clarity. We always like to say to be unclear is to be unkind. Be clear. Have a clear plan on where you're going. We don't know everything, but we know some things, and we will be able to articulate them clearly to you, and then you can articulate them to your team. Okay, so let's move on because I'm running short on time. Let's look now. So we talked about the soil. We talked about the roots. We talked about the trunk. Let's go to the branches. Okay. I want you to think about the branches of your organization. And if you're a solo agent, you're like, hey, Rick, I don't have a team. This is relevant to you. What's the message you're putting out to the consumer? Okay, you want to have a transparent message, the same message you put out to the consumer, you're putting out to your team members. The branches of your organization represent your organizational goals. Okay, it's what you want to be defined as. If you were to look through your reviews, you ever had a really rough day? Maybe a client calls you and yells at you, or maybe a transaction fell apart with this coronavirus that's happened all too often. Have you ever had a client and you just felt really, really disappointed? You felt really frustrated. You felt really discouraged. And you ever read your reviews? And it puts things into perspective. I had one client, their offer didn't get accepted, and they're frustrated, but I just read 900 clients that loved my service over the last 15 years, right? You ever do that? Well, your branches of your organization really, to me, represent what you want to be in those reviews. So if I was to do a word cloud, take all the words, and then if I was to magnify the words that were most regularly mentioned in your reviews, what would come up? Would it be character? Would it be professionalism? Would it be competence? Would it be your ability to communicate? Is it your negotiation skills? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Instead of being reactive with your reviews, why don't you define right now what you want your reviews online to say? And you're not going to write them for them. You're not going to transcribe them for them. You're not going to send them an email with what you want them to say, but you're going to intentionally create a real estate team with the outcomes that you want to have. And so I'm going to tell you that represents your branches. Those are the collective behaviors of your team. Do you want it to be professionalism? Do you want it to be character? Do you want it to be competency? Do you want it to be customer service? Do you want it to be your ability to communicate? Do you want it to be your competence of the local market or how you get an offer accepted? Okay, define that today, and then work towards that end to provide that experience to your clients. And these become your branches. And then finally, I want to talk to you about the fruit and then the seed. And I picked up an apple from the refrigerator today, and I want to talk to you about this apple. And this represents for me on the culture tree our goals, our wildly important goals. Brian and I and the ICC coaches teach a 4-step model to getting things done. We call it the 4 disciplines of execution. And the first discipline is have a wildly important goal. Now, you're not going to get there with a wildly important goal if you don't have good roots, good trunk, solid branches. But then you could start talking about what kind of fruit you want to create. a wildly important goal. We use a formula. It's from X to Y by when. Real simple. So what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? How do you know you've succeeded? How do you know that your culture and your team is successful? How do you define success? Define it, and we represent that to be the fruit. Now, in this piece of fruit, this apple, the potential of this apple is not one apple. The potential of this apple is really orchards and orchards and orchards of other apples. There's a lot of seeds in there. And we're going to tell you that to build a great real estate team, plant some of these seeds back in the ground. Now, how are you going to do that as a real estate team? Well, part of it, you need to reinvest back in your business. Some of you take too much money out of your business and it's wasted. Brian's been talking about how you go about cutting fat, not muscle. Listen, some of you need to cut back some of that fat and put that muscle to work. Put those seeds in the ground. For some of us, we need to replant some of our seeds back into education or coaching, right? So that you can have guidance and direction as you're navigating these uncertain times. Regardless, make sure that you don't just consume this entire apple, but you're planting the seeds back in the ground. The capacity, the volume, the potential of this apple is not one apple. The potential of this apple are orchards. How are you, where are you planting your seeds back in the ground? Because if you don't do that, you're going to find that you're going to one day go out to your orchard and there's going to be nothing there because you never planted it. So you can't expect to have any future fruit. Okay, so today I'm talking to you about what I think is the most important ingredient to build a real estate team. Hey, Sean, what's up, buddy? Sean Cordoza says, very good, Rick, thank you. Zach Morton, hey, cheers, Rick. Cheers, Zach. Good to see you, buddy. So next time, if I come back, I want to talk to you about the 5 termites that can kill your tree, okay? Building a culture tree today will allow, when these storms come, and they're coming fast and furious during this pandemic to all markets, you're going to weather the storm because your roots go deep, because you have a healthy tree and your culture is strong. I'm going to post a video right here. If you like this and you want to learn more about it, feel free to click on that video. If you are interested in coaching, make sure that you do that. Just put in the comments section, hey, contact me for coaching, or you can private message me. I did leave you my digital business card, so if you like what I'm talking about and you want to learn more, connect with rickfuller.com. You can do that. And remember, build a strong culture, build a real estate team that lasts. Okay, friends, thank you so much for your time. We'll see you next time.